and welcome to Life of Die, the podcast which discusses all things role-playing and wargaming related. I'm your regular host, Gordon, and in this latest episode I'm joined by Craig, my epic collaborator. Hi Craig.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me again. And tonight we're talking about the Orcs. Now, the last time we had a conversation, we were talking about Chaos, and I feel I was a bit down on Chaos. I don't think I was firing on all cylinders. I have my reservations about certain units in Chaos, which you all know about if you listen to that episode. So I'm delighted to say we're covering the Orcs tonight, and I really love the Orcs. So I think I'll be a bit more upbeat than I was in the Chaos one. As usual, it's the same format. We're going to be covering our favourite 2, 3, 4 and 5k armies for 2nd edition Space Marine. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. We're not going to cover every single unit. We're just going to talk about our favourites really. And we will try and talk about a few other units at the end of the podcast if we feel there's, and I think there will be because I know what both our lists are. There will be a few gaps to cover over. So I suppose the best place to start with the Orcs is, before we even get into the list, we need to talk a little bit about how they're organised, because it's a bit different to most of the other forces. I think you'd probably agree with that, Craig, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, they still follow some of the same building blocks, but they're just a wee bit odd.
Yeah, it's the same kind of structure. Instead of companies, they have clan cards, and that is your base building block. And again, you can take up to 5 support cards. There's no minimum this time. There was with Chaos. You had to take at least 3 support cards, but you can have none if you want. And for every company card, you can also take a special card. Again, not mandatory, but very helpful, as we'll discover. The other thing to say is that when you're picking your clans, you can't take the same one twice unless you have already taken all of the clans, which is pretty much near impossible, because if you did, you're probably going to be talking about 8,000 points or something like that. Well, not impossible, but most of our listeners, certainly we don't usually play 8,000 points. I think the most we've played is maybe a 7,000 or something. I'm not sure, Craig, what the largest one. 5 is kind of the upper end for us most of the time, though, I would say.
Yeah, that's about right.
The other thing to say about the Orcs, which is really important, is about their organisation. Basically, at the core of every clan, there is the command unit, which is the Orc nobles, or nobs, as they're more commonly referred to. So they're the kind of core command units, and everybody that's in your mob, basically, everything in the clan and the support cards, by and large, have to be within one of their models in each of those units, has to be within 10 centimetres of a nob stand, which is fairly limiting, so you've got to be kind of careful. This is a reason why I would say Orcs aren't the best if you're just starting out in Epic, because it took a wee bit of getting used to for me because of this rule. This is also a tactical thing as well. The nobs basically are absolutely key. You do not want to have them killed. If they're killed off, the army goes into natural instincts. I'm not going to go through what they all are, but for example, the Bad Moons will go in first fire orders, and Goths will go into effectively charge orders. So these kind of natural instincts take over. A lot of the time they're actually fine for what you've set them up to do, but it's not ideal. You definitely want to protect the nobs. The thing I would say to anybody that's playing Orcs is that the boys just treat them as total cannon fodder. The enemy can't target the nob stands while there's any closer units to them. So that basically allows you to kind of to basically put a whole load of troops out in front of the nobs and allow the nobs to, they're the ones that can really do the damage because they get 2 attack dice as opposed to 1. And depending on what clan you've taken, usually the to save modifier is better as well, and possibly the range is as well in some instances. So that's the thing I think's absolutely key to understanding, is you're going to have to keep some units very close by to those nobs. You're probably going to have to space them out as far as you can, because the nobs themselves are restricted by the command rule, which means they can't be any more than 6 centimetres apart. So basically got, 24 centimetres if you spread them all out. I think it's that. But basically if you spread them out, and then you need to have, for each formation you have, one of the vehicles has to be within 10 centimetres of one of those nobs. So yeah, you can spread them out a little bit, but you have to be really, really careful with them. Anyway, I think that's as much as I want to say about the kind of basics of the Orcs, about the rules. So I think we can just crack on and get stuck into our 2,000 point lists. So over to you, Craig. I'll let you go first.
Sure thing. So for my 2,000 points, I have taken the Badminton Clan as my first clan card. So the Badmins are a wee bit more shooty than the other Orc clans, and as you said earlier, their kind of instinct is to do first fire against the closest unit to them. So if they do fall out of command, then that's what they'll fall back to, which in some cases isn't such a bad thing. So they're fairly standard composition. It's 15 stands of boys and 4 knobs. So yeah, generally they kind of form that more shooty element to an orc force. And to go with them, I've taken some Brain Crushers, which are a really good kind of sniper unit effectively. They're 100 centimeter range. I think they hit a 4+ and do -2, or is it -3?
-3.
-3, yeah. Sorry, hitting a 3+. Yeah, hitting a 3+ doing a -3. So they're really good for wiping out heavier armor or taking down titans, that sort of thing. So yeah, stick them at the back of the board on a hill and let them do their thing. And again, it's not a massive problem if you want to then take the badmins forward, take the knobs forward with the rest of the boys and leave them on a hill somewhere just to take shots because they'll do some damage. The other clan I've taken is the Cult of Speed. So these are effectively 10 war buggies and 5 knob war bikes. And again, they've got a little bit of a balance of kind of shootiness and close combat, and they're the kind of fast unit for the orcs, getting up the board really quickly. So yeah, I've taken them. I think they're a really strong card for 400 points. And to go with them, I've taken a Mech Boy Lift the Dropper Speedster. Again, it's a bit of a gamble, funny unit to use, as is most of the Orc stuff, but it does get you access to Mech Boy repair cards to go with that, so we can talk a little bit of them later on, but effectively they're bonuses to your Orcs that you can play depending on the time says in the card, so they can grant you things like extra movement or extra close assault or even weirder things like that, so taking that with them. I've also taken some Evil Sun's Bowel Burners. Now, I think we talked a little bit about this beforehand. We've asked the question of the community as well about Cult of Speed taking Evil Sun's specific cards. Now, that's another thing we didn't really mention, but there's like sort of specific support cards for each clan, and they need to go with that clan. They can't be taken by other clans out with that, apart from when it comes to the Death Skulls, who can take anything. But it was definitely, in my head, it was errated at some point that the Cult of Speed could take Evil Sun's cards, and we've asked that of the community, and I think that's the general consensus is that's what it is. So
general consensus and the Chambers himself chimed in as well to agree that it was available. So that to me is canon. As soon as you wrote the bit.
Absolutely. But yeah, definitely it's written that way in Net Epic for sure, but I certainly remember playing that rule as a kid, pre-Net Epic, so it must have been somewhere written down or mentioned in White Dwarf or something. But anyway, all that aside, I'm taking some Bile Burners, which are a cheap flame unit just to ride along with the Cult of Speed and pick anyone out of any forests or buildings that they come across. Now, to go with that, I've taken a Mech Boy Gargant, which is the smallest of the Gargants. And again, it's a bit of a weird and wonderful weapon. It's built by the Mech Boy, so it's got a bit of a different power field style to the rest of the Gargants, making it effectively invincible in some regards and then very vulnerable in others. So again, it's a bit of a gamble unit, like most of the Orc stuff, and a 2,000 point list, taking a 450 point special card is a bit of a gamble as well, but I love it, so I'm taking it.
What the weapons like? Because I only took it the once, and I can't remember how great it was. It's a bit like the custom cannon on the Met Boys, where you kind of roll dice or something to see how many attack dice it gets or something, one of the weapons.
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively got that kind of custom cannon. It's also got a choice of kind of main arms. It's got a super lift the drop arm, which is similar to the super lift the dropper speedster. So it's quite long range and does a lot of damage if you can pull it off. You can also have kind of close combat buzzsaw arms which also do some ranged attacks because they've got cannons mounted on the side of them. The same goes for the crusher arm as well. But yeah, the custom cannon's like a 4+ to hit, -2 modifier, 50 centimeter range but variable attack dice. So it can be quite devastating.
Can also misfire the same as those Chaos Cannon Acorn, which I really dislike.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, the difference being from memory, when it misfires, certainly it's the case, I'll come to this when we get to the Met Boys later on, the Renegade Met Boys, that they, rather than the Cannon Acorn where it's just like automatically destroyed, it's actually a -2 to save modifiers, so you've actually got a chance of surviving it, which I much prefer to that kind of auto death, I have to say.
Yeah, well for the Mech Boy Gargant, if you misfire with the custom cannon, it just you roll in the damage chart for that weapon. So there's a chance it might just be damaged. There's a chance of it can get blown off and cause flashbacks and fires and things, but probably not the end of the world if it goes wrong. Hopefully not. But again, like the theme will be tonight, I think, is most of the orc stuff is a bit of a gamble when it comes to the weirder and wonderful weapons. But yeah, definitely take a Mech by Gargant, just as it maybe draws a little bit of fire as well. It's just cool to field it. For my other special card, I've taken the War Boss, which is effectively a beefed up knob. He's the leader of that pulls these clans together and gets them to fight under his banner, so he can pull these disparate forces together because he's the biggest, I think is how it works. But yeah, he's effectively a beefed up knob, better, close assault. He comes with 5 knobs as his bodyguard as well, and a couple of battle wagons. So yeah, really, really powerful unit for 250 points. You can pretty much get them to gang up in close combat against things like Titans and bring them down if you really wanted to, or just have them shoot as well. They've got that really powerful custom weapons, and having them in the battle wagons obviously gets them up closer, quicker. So yeah, I think that's a really, really powerful unit to have on the field.
The other reason I think they're quite powerful is because, for the reasons I set out at the start there, because the orcs are operating these huge mobs basically.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems you can have as an orc player, if you're up against, again, pretty much actually any of the other forces, they tend to have units that can branch off all over the place because they don't have those same constructions. Imperial Guard actually would be an exception, but the rest of them pretty much you can send your units wherever you want to. Whereas because the orcs are moving as these huge mobs, it makes it kind of harder from the point of view of taking objectives.
Yep.
Because you're running about in these huge mobs. So the orc war boss is actually quite important from that point of view as well, because it effectively gives you a unit that can act on its own.
Definitely.
And so it's important that way. I actually also think if you really want to game it, war bosses are the way to go. Genuinely. I love Gargants, but if you really want to win with the orcs, to me, you would ignore the Gargants and just load your whole force up with war bosses. Not very flavourful, I have to say. So I've not done that. It's later on before the Gargants are introduced, and I'll explain the reasons why at the time. But
no, that's fair enough.
The gamiest way to play the orcs, and probably the most successful way, again, if you're really desperate for a win, I think war bosses as your special cards would be the way to go.
Yeah, they're amazing for the points when you consider compare them to Gargants. Yeah, I think I would caveat my list with that as well, that I'm trying to get a bit of a spread of units throughout. But again, one of the things with the orcs that we can come to discuss is that if you take multiple units of the same card type, they actually form a mob and activate as a single unit and add to the breakpoint of that unit and activate at the same time. So there is actually a little bit of encouragement with the orcs to sort of spam units when you want. So a lot of the time I would take multiple cards of Brain Crushers or multiple cards of Bowel Burners or that kind of thing, just to get them mobbed up in that way. I can't remember if my lists do that or not. I think I've tried to keep it to kind of unique things where possible, but yeah, as you say, if you're desperate for a win, there's a few slightly dirty tactics you can use that are perfectly within the rules, but yeah.
And the spirit. I mean, to me, the orcs they would do things like that anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how. Yeah, I'm assuming you can take multiple war bosses. There's nothing to say that you can't. Although, just from the kind of lore perspective, I don't know how 2 war bosses would feel about commanding the same army. I don't know if there'd be a bit of infighting and only one would survive at that point. But
well, I suppose the way that I look at it is that it's the war boss he's in charge of his own clan, and it's just that they all happen to be there.
Okay.
As far as I can tell, there's no limitation.
No, I mean, I know Net Epic brought in that you had to have specific levels of commander for the force in order to keep all the clans in order. So I think for Net Epic, after you take 2 or more clans, you need to take a war boss, and then after that you need to take a warlord, and then you need to get up to kind of a Gargant to command it later on. So I guess that was their way of getting around that, a little bit of a anomaly in the lore. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to have multiple war bosses in the field. Yeah, they're definitely worth having. Another weird thing about the orcs, well, I don't know if it's weird, but most armies have got some sort of like free card, but the orcs have got a few options. So they've got a free special card, which we'll talk about later. But they've also got the Mad Boys as a free card. Now, effectively, I've got it represented here as 1 card, and in the photos I've just got it as 4 stands of proxied boys. But effectively, you can fill up all of your remaining support card slots with Mad Boys, and they'll form a mob. So in this case, I've got 6 of them in total. 7? 7 Mad Boys, which each of those 4 stands joins to form this massive mob. And then the Mad Boys are a crazy unit themselves. They can do very little or do nothing, or they can go crazy and probably wreak havoc. But there's, I think there's a D60 table you roll on to see what they do. Very much a gamble.
You won't see these are my forces, but it's just, you can assume that they're there.
Yeah, I think I don't think I've got enough cards to represent them. And again, models wise, I think I'd probably end up proxying them for this specifically, because I'm getting up to 28 stands of them at this point, and this is just the first list off the block. So yeah, they're just there as a representation of a Mad Boys mob, but there will be lots of them. And that's just, you just fill up all the remaining support slots that you've got with them. So yeah, that's my 2,000 points.
Okay. Yeah, we've actually gone very similar here. I think it's worth mentioning. The two of us have both taken the Cult of Speed and the Badminton Clan as our kind of base blocks, I think, across our forces. The reasons for that, I mean, the Badmintons are really, really attractive as a contingent. To me, they're the best of the kind of basic Orc boys because of the fact that they've got 50 range, 1 dice 5 or 6 to hit, which is the same as everybody else, I think. But it's -2 to their save modifiers, so they're actually quite powerful, and they can, quite capable of destroying land raiders and the like. So it's a really good reason to want to take them, and yeah, obviously we've not been able to resist either. They do tend to be the core. I think the Badmintons always appear for me in every single list that I've ever done for the Orcs, just because of that reason alone. And to me, that's far more attractive to take them because of that -2 to save modifier. It makes a big difference that you can take down vehicles, whereas most of the other boys are 0 modifiers, which isn't great unless you're facing a lot of infantry, and let's face it, a lot of infantry will hide in buildings or in woods, so to me the shooting doesn't tend to be as effective. So that's why it's important for me personally that the Badmintons are in there, because they do have those -2 to save modifiers. Obviously the knobs have I think they're the same. I think they're also -2 from memory, and the war boss is as well. The 50 range thing, I suppose, is another thing worth commenting on. Most of the Orc stuff, by and large, is about 50 centimetres, which makes it a bit tricky again to be in range. So you need to make sure you're getting up the board pretty quickly to get into that 50 range, because it is limiting compared to the 75 range. I think we've talked a lot about 75 range and the difference between 50 and 75 in various episodes, so that's another kind of thing to bear in mind with the Orcs, particularly because when they run about in these mobs, they tend to be, if you don't get a move rate at 10 centimetres and you're charging them first turn, you're only 20 centimetres into the board. The other player is probably going to, if he's got Imperials or MD that's kind of fairly manoeuvrable, they're going to have their stuff in place at the end of turn 1, so you certainly want to be advancing at worst in turn 2, because really you're going to end up, if you're in a firefight, you want to make sure you're in range and able to fire in turn 2, so that's something I would mention. And it's the reason why I've taken 2 battle wagon squadrons and a Skullhammer battle fortress, so that I can basically carry all of my boys, get them into position and get them into that 50 range straight off the bat in turn 1. The battle wagons, they're not particularly impressive, I have to say, but what I do like about the battle wagons is they are fast, and I think at 25 move rate, so they're effectively same speed as a Rhino. They can carry 3 troop stands instead of 2 that the Rhinos have, because the boys are kind of basically crawling all over the clinging on for dear life as they're trundling across the battlefield. They've got a turret, which is again an improvement on what the Rhino has. It's got 50 range, 1 dice 5 or 6, 0 modifier, which again is the same kind of drawback that I was kind of talking about with most of the boys and things. So that's not amazing, but it's something. At least you can actually fire them, and for me personally, I don't feel the Rhinos are really up to that task. They only get bolters, which are 15 a 6 to hit, so it's definitely an improvement on Rhinos. And they do cost double the cost of a Rhino, so I suppose that's something else to bear in mind. They're slightly weak, they're only 4+ save, so the cannon's really what you're paying for those extra points between a Rhino and that. Now you can take Rhinos for the Orcs except for one clan, which we'll maybe mention at the end. So yeah, the Batwagons aren't amazing, but the thing I do like is that because I've got 2 squadrons, I'm going to be adding 4 to that break point, which makes it harder for the enemy to break the clan. Yeah, I think you did allude to it there. Basically, all the support cards are adding to the break point, and so if it's always a good idea to try and get quite a few support cards onto to make them hard to break, and hopefully you can defeat your opponent before your stuff starts breaking, because it can be quite frustrating playing against the Orcs that they can take quite heavy losses because of that rule, before they'll break. But when they do, you're going to get a nice big chunk of victory points, because that's the downside. All the victory points get added up, and as soon as they break, the opponent gets a lot. So it can go both ways. If you're doing well and you're able to break your opponent and win the game, then brilliant. You might actually win it without actually the other side gaining that many points. But once your guys start going, usually the the victory point yield will be encouraging your opponents, that's for sure. The other downside about the Orcs, probably worth mentioning as well, is that most of them have a morale value of 4, so when it starts coming to morale checks, 50-50 chance they might run away, so that's not so good. And it's definitely worth keeping in mind. The Skullhammer Battle Fortress, I really like them. They're super heavies, which doesn't mean so much in 2nd edition. I'm not going to go through that all again. You've all heard it before, what I think about the super heavies in Net Epic, which is good. The Skullhammer has a 15 centimetre move rate, can carry 5 trip stands, but one thing it can do is it can go triple speed when it charges, so it's quite good. It's just as effective as the battle wagons, really. 5 centimetres less than a charging battle wagon the Skullhammer can move. And the other thing that's good about it is it's a blaster cannon, I think they're called, or something like that. It's got 75 range, which is great, again, because most of the Orc stuff is 50 range, so that's really good. 2 dice, 4 or more to hit, which is great, and it's a -2 to save modifier, so it's actually like a bit like a Land Raider, but with slightly better armour, because it's 1+ save, and it's got slightly more accuracy, which is really odd to me. But I love it.
Yeah.
So they're pretty handy to have. Obviously, they are slightly more expensive in a land. You get 3 Land Raiders for 200 points, whereas you won't get 2 for 200 points. But, there's a lot of pluses there. Taking 5 guys into the fight is good and great for kind of, as I say, mobilising the bad moons there. So because I've got the Bat Wagons and the Skullhammer, the 2 of them should be able to get up the board pretty quickly and into position, ready to first fire the rest of the game. And the other thing that I'm going to take with the bad moons is... I don't want to say the I word, Craig. What am I going to say instead?
Orky?
Yeah, a very orky unit is the Weird Boy Battle Tower. Now, I really love this unit. I think it's great fun, and I've had it go off in my face and lose a game literally in the second turn that we're doing. I'll just explain a little bit about what the Bad Moon Battle Tower does. Stats wise, it's not amazing. It's got 25 move rate, which is good. It's got a 4+ save, which means it's a little bit brittle, particularly if there's any Land Raiders or Grav tanks or things of that ilk against it. However, it can be insanely powerful if you can get it to survive long enough. Basically, how it works is at the end in the end phase of a given turn, you add up how much power the Weird Boy, who's a kind of psyker, and he's locked in this tower on this vehicle, has soaked up. So for every infantry or light artillery, you get 1 point. Cavalry, heavy artillery, vehicles, and so on, you'll get half a point. You'll get D6 points from a Gargant if there's one nearby. So basically, you add up all these points at the end of the turn, and depending on that, how many energy points you've got, you get so many attack dice. Now, I like to have them soaking up over 20 points, which puts it into the danger zone, because I'm just going to tell you what you would get. If you had between 21 and 25 points, you would get 6 attack dice, 150 range, 2 pluses to hit, -5 save modifier. Crazy powerful. And 26 plus points, you get 200 centimetre range, 8 attack dice, 2 plus, -5 to save modifiers, so they're really brilliant. They're totally amazing, so accurate, and they can deal out all this damage, so you can imagine how quickly you could take a Titan down with that, if you've got the 8 die, particularly if you get 26 points. The downside is, if you accumulate more than 20, you roll a dice, a d6, and on a 6, the Weird Boy overloads, destroying himself and hitting all models within 2d6 centimetres. Because I had them all nice and close by, soaking up the power for him. Played my nephew one game, and he absolutely loved it when I rolled a 6 and it overloaded, and I think I rolled 12 as well for the thing. So it was like a total mushroom cloud went off in the centre of the board, and all my bad moons were pretty much wiped out immediately. So he was really gleeful about that. But, it's worth the risk.
Yeah, definitely.
But when it goes off, it can be catastrophic, definitely, and it can really end a game pretty much there, because if you lose an entire clan, particularly at a low points cost like this, then...
Although it's something I've never tried or really even thought about, because I always used to have it going along with my Badminton Clan as well and just soaking up the energy from them. But I'm assuming you could just put it with the Mad Boys mob. And in the example I had earlier, if you've got 24 stands of Mad Boys potentially who are free and effectively, could be useless throughout the game, you could just use them as the psychic fodder for your weird boy.
I think you've still got to be attached to knobs, so I don't think it's an independent unit. So I think you would have to be...
Right.
I don't think you could do that. I mean, obviously, if you had the Mad Boys nearby, that would help you soak them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a better way to go, but you would definitely need at least one of your knobs to be within 10 centimetres of it.
I'd only if you want to give them rule, get them to attack a specific target, I guess. But if you weren't too fussy, you could leave it on instinct rules, and then just let it first fire at the closest thing, I suppose.
Yeah, never thought of.
Yeah, it's worth.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
It's a bit of a gamble either way, but yeah.
So anyway, that's my bad moons, and I've also taken the Cult of Speed, and I also wanted to beef up their numbers. So I've taken the Bill Burners, same as yourself. You know what I think of these kind of flame weapons with that big template, great for smoking out infantry. So I always want them in a force if I can take them, and I've taken them here. And I've also taken some extra knobs war bikes, and I've taken the Bite Boys mob. I suppose one thing I'd like to say about the Cult of Speed is it's a bit the same as how I was describing with the basic clans with the knobs being the power behind the throne. Exactly the same thing except they're on bikes. And the knob war bikes are actually pretty good, because the bikes, I think the board buggies are exactly the same. I think they're 30 centimetres move rate, so they're really fast. To be honest, the war buggies aren't particularly impressive from a shooting point of view. It's only 25 range, 1 dice fire, 6-0 modifier. They've got +2 calf, which is okay, although obviously Imperials, Eldar, Scots in particular would have an edge over them in close combat, but it's not, it's not terrible. But again, the same thing, I would treat these the same as I would treat the boys. These are the cannon fodder. You definitely want to protect knobs war bikes because they're fast, as I said, 30 centimetre move. They do have a basic save of 6, doesn't mean too much if anything to save modifier will hit you. They do have a +5 calf, which is great for a bike, as we just mentioned there. You're certainly going to have the edge over most other factions when it comes to bikes. But the thing I think I would be inclined to do with them is actually because they can charge in first fire, I would try and avoid putting them into close combat if I could, and use, okay, it's only 25 range, but those 2 attack dice with a -2 to save modifiers, great. And because they're so fast, you can get yourself into that 25 range without too much problem. So they're really powerful. So that's why I've taken an extra unit of them because of that. And the Bite Boys, yeah, they're less good. They don't have weapons, but they've got a +3 calf, which means it's going to be in a par with most other factions. Again, 30 move rates. So yeah, my Cult of Speed has probably got quite a high break point because I've added all these bikes onto it as well, which is what I was thinking. I don't want those points getting handed over too early in the game for a 2,000 pointer. And that's them. And I've also taken a War Boss for the Bad Moons for the reasons we said. I suppose one thing I would mention, I don't think we did mention before, was effectively they've got 12 attack dice between them, those 6 stands. So if you think about it, that's equivalent to a Devastator's detachment, and a Devastator company would cost you 1,000 points, and if you had 3 War Bosses special cards, then you're getting that for 750. So that's another massive reason to do that. But again, I accept it's not particularly flavourful not to have Gargants. I like seeing Gargants in the force if possible. And the final card I've taken are Freebooters, and it's a free card. Unusually for a special card, you don't really see much of that. And the Freebooters, I'm just basically taking them because they are free. It's as simple as that. The thing that is quite good about them is that they are independent, which, like the War Boss, again, that's important, particularly at a low points cost like this, because I've only got 2 clans, so I've basically doubled the kind of number of groupings on the board by having the War Boss and by having the Freebooters. So, as I say, the Freebooters aren't, they're not much better than basic boys from Minute. I haven't really, to be honest, I've not actually really used them because Net Epic, I think you have to pay for them in Net Epic, so I've always been more inclined to take the kind of War Boss or whatever, or the Gargants. Aye, they're basically like normal kind of vanilla boys, so
The only weird thing about them is they have this kind of like squabble if the captain dies. I think they have to elect another captain, and there can be some
Yeah.
kind of oddness where they'll just turn on each other or fight each other. But yeah, just to have another independent unit on the board is really good.
Yeah.
Just for grabbing an objective or something.
Exactly. You can also add, I'm not showing them in the pictures, but you can also add more Mad Boys to the equation as well there. And that wraps up my 2,000 points. So on to 3,000. What have you got, Craig?
Yeah, so for my 3,000 points, it's actually quite funny how similar our lists are. 'Cause we didn't see each other's list prior to going into this, and I think there's actually more crossover than I even imagined there would be. Considering the amount of units the Orcs have got, I think it's fair to say they've got the most variety of any Force and Second Edition. But yeah, we've got our favourites, so that might be a bit quicker to run through than expected. But yeah, same backbone again. Cult of Speed, Badminton Clan. But this time I've taken a Goth clan as well. Now, the Goths I think they're kind of billed as a close combat unit or a close combat clan, but they also do get pretty decent shooting bonuses just at a shorter range, and they've got additional knobs. So they've got 8 knobs, as opposed to the usual 4 that you would get with a kind of standard clan.
Really powerful.
Yeah, so the knobs are really powerful. So again, they're one of these ones that you can do a lot of damage with them in shooting and in close combat, so they're really worth their weight. And I've taken 3 skull hammers to transport them around with, and a battle wagon squadron to kind of spread them out a little bit. I think the cards, I've got a Goblet Grinder, but it's a skull hammer, I just didn't have the card for it. Now again, just as you said, the skull hammers are really impressive for all reasons. They're fast with a triple charge, they've got great range, really powerful, and they're also decent in a fight and pretty survivable as well. So putting the Goths in there to get them up the field, and then once they're dropped off, the skull hammers also, because they've got onboard knobs, so they can fight fairly independently as well. So once they've dropped off the clan, they can go about their business and hopefully give some supporting fire to them. Other than that, I've kept the support more or less the same. So I've taken the Brain Crusher Squadron for the Badmins and the Barrel Burners for the Cult of Speed. I've taken the Mech Boy Gargant, the Orc War Boss, and I've taken the Freebooters for the free special card as well for the reasons we discussed. I've had to drop the Mech Boy Speedster this time, which is a wee bit of a shame because I'm losing out on those Mech Boy repair cards as well. But hopefully the sacrifice will be worth it. And yeah, filling up the support slots with Mad Boys again. So yeah, that's my 3,000 points.
Yeah, I think my 3,000 is going to be just about as fast. I've got the same spine to it. I've got the Badmins with a skull hammer, 2 squadrons of battle wagons, and the Weird Boy battle tower. And I've got the Cult of Speed again. I've taken Knobs War Bikes and Bike Boys, same as I did last time. I have dropped out the Bill Burners, regrettably. Because I love them, but yeah, they had to go in this particular one, and the reason was because I'm having to take transports. Same reasons as I was saying for the Badmins. Sorry, the other clan I've taken is the Goths, same as you, for the reasons that you said. They're +3 in close combat, and they've got a -1 to save modifier. I think it's only 25 range they get from memory.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, I feel it's really necessary to get the transports for these guys because you want them in amongst the thick of it. Even more so than the Badmins, you want them in position quickly to get in range. The Goths, you want them up the board as fast as possible because you're probably going to use them by and large as close combat specialists. So the battle wagons, 2 squadrons of them again, also adds to the break point, which is handy to get them up the board quickly. And the Skullhammer battle fortress. Because of the size of the Goth clan, you've got to be kind of fairly careful with that. Make sure that you've got enough transports. So effectively the 2 battle wagon squadrons can carry 18 stands between them, and then another 5 for the skull hammer, which is enough, fortunately, to get both the boys and the command unit of the knobs up the board really quickly. But again, I'd agree with you. You probably want to be using those knobs and get them into a building on an edge of woods is actually my kind of favourite. And have the rest of the boys kind of surging forward if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you can do with the battle fortresses because they've got, because they can still get orders when they're out of command coherency or whatever. They can drop the boys off quite far up the field, and the boys will just go into their instinctual kind of charge orders or whatever.
Yeah.
Once you've dropped them off, and the knobs can stay behind and do some shooting. So yeah, there's a few tactics you can employ using that kind of combination.
Yeah, and it's how they're most effective anyway in close combat. The boys, the 25 centimetre, personally speaking, is a bit too limiting. It's handy sometimes, but more often than not, you're not going to be in 25 range. Unless you're closing in. In any case, you're probably just going to charge them because of +3 close assault factor, and 15 of those guys is going to mount up even against the kind of best aspect warriors. If you've got enough boys to outnumber them, then yeah, you probably can do something about it. So yeah, they're really, really effective. And again, I've taken the freebooters, and yeah, that's me, my 3,000 points. So straight on to 4,000.
Yeah, rattling through it.
I don't think we've ever agreed about so much so far.
I know, like I say, it's odd. I think possibly I've maybe gleaned most of my orc knowledge from you, and that's probably why I've got that way. But also, I am kind of playing stuff that I had as a kid for the most part, so it's just a bit of an odd coincidence, we'll say.
Do you know what? I actually think, from what I've learned online, I think most second edition or net epic players are the same. It's because you gravitate naturally towards the Badmins and the Goths because of their strengths over the other ones. The other ones are pretty, I don't mean this bad, but they're a bit bland by comparison. Again, it's the same argument even that I had with the Space Marines about tactical Marines. If you can have units which are stronger at one aspect than other ones, then of course you're going to naturally gravitate towards it. And the Cult of Speed, also, we've talked about how important we think cavalry is, and really the Cult of Speed fulfills that role for the Orcs.
Yep.
It's very difficult to take bikes now as support for a clan because you're always kind of slowed down by how fast the clan can move. So unless you take, in theory, yeah, you could take Nobs war bikes and then buggies or basic bikes, whatever you like, and then they could break off from the clan because you've got your Nobs war bikes to do so, but that's expensive. 200 points for, they're really good, the war bikes, for 200 points, don't get me wrong. But, would you not rather have transports to get particularly, Badmins up the board? It's less important, I suppose, if you were taking some of the other clans, because, as I say, they do have that vanilla thing that they don't have. They're not particularly amazing at close assault, and they're not great at shooting. So I don't think it's surprising particularly that we've picked these three as our core clans, as it were, because, frankly, they're the most effective, and I think most players would do the same.
Yep.
And I think they'd be surprised if we kind of deviated from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think unless you've got a real love of the weird and wonderful models that are specific to, or units that are specific to another clan, then there's not much incentive to take them. But we can have a wee talk about that and round them off at the end, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, we'll cover them.
Yeah.
Because there's one or two things I want to say about some of them. So anyway,
Sure.
4,000 points. What have you got?
Yep, so for my 4,000, I've got the Cult of Speed again, I've got the Badminton Clan, I've got the Goth Clan, and I've also taken an Evil Sons clan this time.
Oh.
The Evil Sons are one of those fairly vanilla clans. In fact, they're probably worse off than a lot of them because you only get 3 knobs with them. But they are all mechanized, they're all loaded up in battle wagons.
Yep.
So again, at this point's value, just having a whole clan I can effectively peel off and go and grab an objective or do something independently effectively from the rest of the army is quite appealing. I've paired them with a little bit of shootiness. I've got the Spleen Rippers. Now, I really like the Spleen Rippers. They're, a fast vehicle with a decent gun on them. I think it's 75 centimeter range. I believe it's a 4+ to hit and -2 save modifier. So they're pretty effective kind of armor killers. Obviously, if I'm driving them around with my Evil Sons, then they'll need to be all going at the same sort of speed. This will be when the Evil Sons are in their
Element.
battle wagons. yeah, exactly. So they'll be loving it, but they'll also be along with the knobs in the battle wagons just to add some fire support. They're kind of restricted in that they can't go off kind of tank hunting by themselves or whatever, but that's fine with me. I've brought the Lift a Dropper back in again just to get those Mech Boy repair cards, and also because it's a bit of a nasty weapon if it goes all to plan. For the Goths, I've given them the same thing, where they've just got 3 skull hammers and some battle wagons to get them into the fight. Still got the war boss, still got the freebooters, still got the brain crushers for the badmins. The only thing I've added to the badmins this time is a weird boy battle tower. For all the reasons you discussed, it was one of those ones I had as a kid. Or no, in fact I didn't. I had a battle wagon with a cocktail stick and something. Some kind of bit of Lego glued to the top of it, and that was my Weird Boy Battle Tower for a number of years. And
It sounds quite orky to me.
Yeah, exactly. I looked the part.
Mine was a battle wagon with, I didn't have the turret in it. I just put one of the command pegs in it. It used to get for the. That was how I did it. But yeah, wasn't. I think yours sounds more orky than mine.
Well, it certainly did the job, and I think I've had similar experiences with it where it can be game winning or game losing.
Yeah.
Especially as I think the kind of points values we used to play were about 2,000 points, so the risk of losing half your force on turn 2 is pretty nasty. But yeah, it was good fun. So yeah, I think now that I've had a little bit of time to think about it, the Mad Boys pairing that with the Badmin Battletar could potentially save your clan from getting wiped out, but you're then at the behest of the kind of instinctual rules, whatever, and your opponent might be able to take advantage of that. So I'm not sure. Need to play test that one. The only other thing I've done is I've dropped the Mech Boy Gargant and replaced it with a Slasher this time. Again, that's partly nostalgia because I had a Slasher back in the day. I didn't have a Mech Boy. But yeah, it's a wee bit more conventional and it's got slightly more, say, Titan Killer-y weapons on it. It's got the Gutbuster Cannon, as we talked about earlier. So I think at this point's value, you're probably going to start coming up against Titans and stuff. So yeah, I've taken that along.
What weapons would you take other than the Gutbuster? I think it's probably worth mentioning the Gutbuster has a few options on it as well.
Yeah.
You've got the chain thing which can take down the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kind of airburst, I think it's called, where it's a kind of huge template, but everything gets a +1 to their save.
That's
so
right.
Not so effective against vehicles, but definitely still you'd probably still take a lot of infantry down with it. And the ball round, the ball round's my favourite. It's definitely my favourite, particularly against squats. I really like it against the squats because if you hit, it basically rams through all the void shields, and I think it's a -3 to save modifier from memory, or 4 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's quite effective in destroying Praetorians actually, and even in the epic with the damage table. But certainly, it's hard to save against it. That's for sure. Ball round.
Yeah, no, the Gutbusters, really good for pretty much everything, I think. Yeah, I'd probably take the slash attack gun, which is just a kind of, it's a bit boring. It's got 50 centimeter range, 5 dice, 4+ to hit, -2 modifier. So
doesn't sound boring to me.
No, it's not very orky. It's just a really good all-round weapon for taking out armor. Yeah, 5 attack dice with a -2 is pretty awesome. So yeah, I'd take one of those. And I've always taken a Ripper Fist just because that's what it's modelled with, which again is a bit of a misleading one because it does actually have a 75 centimeter range because it's got these 2 cannons on the side of it. So it, again, fires 2 attack dice hitting on 4s with a -2. So it's similar, just more dice effectively and a little bit more range than the slash attack gun, but it also acts as a close combat weapon, adding an extra d6 just in case anyone is crazy enough to charge your Slasher Gargant. I don't think you'll ever get the opportunity of charging your Slasher Gargant into an enemy unless something's went really wrong. But yeah, there's some really good options for the Gargant weapons. They're all, again, it helps boost the Orc range as well, because a lot of them are 75 centimeters plus, which is really nice because it's definitely a limitation of the Orcs, as we talked about last time with the Chaos. That kind of 50 centimeter core range is, anytime you can go above that is a real bonus. So yeah, there's some really good options for the Gargant weapons.
I've just been looking at the rules there while you were talking, and so yeah, there's no bonus to the damage roll. It's -4 modifier. I didn't mention that the template is a lot smaller. It's only a 3 centimeter template for the ball round. You roll 4d6 and it'll move that number of centimeters from your target and keep rolling to destruction.
That's right.
So you can really take out quite a lot of stuff if you, depending on how your opponent's set up. Any opponent that's kind of savvy to that stuff will not do it, but certainly I use it as a Praetorian killer because of the -4 to save modifier. It means I'm guaranteed to at least get a roll. Well, not guaranteed, but highly likely to be able to roll on the damage table for it. So, and if you're playing 2nd edition Praetorians, then it's basically the opponent has to roll 5+ or his Praetorian's gone. That's that end of story. So yeah, that's my favourite against the Scots, definitely, because of those Praetorians they like to bring. It's a nice antidote towards it. Of course, if it scatters, you do have to roll for scatter first of all to see where it lands, so it's not a given that it will hit where it wants to.
No.
And I suppose the other thing we should mention about the Gutbuster is that there's a whole turn where it doesn't do anything as well, so once you've fired it, you can't fire the next turn. So that's a bit of a disadvantage about it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's me. That's my 4,000. What have you got?
I've pretty much kept everything that I had before. So I've got the same kind of spine. The Bad Moons I've changed slightly here. I've given them 2 Goblet Grinders and 1 squadron of Battle Wagons, which again is enough to bring the whole clan into battle. The Goblet Grinders it's always a bit of a kind of toying cost for me between the Skullhammers and the Goblet Grinders, which is appropriate because they're both the same points cost. They both cost 100 points for one. They both carry 5 stands. Now, the Goblet Grinders don't have that triple charge that the Skullhammers do, but what they do have instead is a Death Roller, which is it's basically a kind of spiked roller in the front of the vehicle, and if there's infantry in front of you and you've got movement, you can basically overrun them and splatter them underneath this death roller thing. So every time you encounter an infantry stand, you roll a dice and it's 4+. The stand has to make a save. Now most units in 2nd don't have any saves. So quite often that means that they're dead. So you get a 50-50 chance. So if you're really lucky, you might go on a rampage and splatter a whole load of infantry troops. So I really like that about them. Again, they're the same as the Skullhammers. I think you mentioned it, Gray. I think I missed it earlier on, which is that they can go off and do their own thing. They've got a kind of squad of knobs on board. They don't get the same charge and first fire bonus that normal knobs do, but it does mean you can break it off, which is really handy. And the other thing that I think is really good about the Goblet Grinder is it's got 5 attack dice, 50 range, and it's -1 to save modifiers. So it's a tricky one to pick which is the best out of the two. So on this occasion, I've decided that to be honest, actually, now that I'm thinking again about it, I think I'd put the Goblet Grinders with the Goths.
Okay.
But then again, the Skullhammer.
Then you don't get the triple charge, though. It's the triple charge, exactly. The big seller for me. That's why I've always been Skullhammers. But yeah, I do find the Goblet Grinder appealing, especially as like a fire support platform. It does, those extra dice.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So I'm going to stick with my original instinct. Goblet Grinders are with the Bad Moons because even though they get 50 range, so do the Bad Moons. I'm trying to get them into 50 range, so it makes sense to me that they're going to be in 50 range as well. So yeah, I'm happy. I've also taken the Cult of Speed is pretty much as it was with extra knobs, war bikes, extra bike boys, and the Bill Burners are back for this points cost just because I love them. And the Goths I have. Oh, I think I missed. I don't think I mentioned it when I was on the previous one, and I'm sure they were there. The Gut Rippers, who are one of the kind of specific units you can take for the Goths. And again, it's a bit like what I was just describing there with the Goblet Grinders and Skullhammers. There's 2 specific vehicles. I'll come at the other one later maybe. The Gut Ripper I like because it's got these kind of claws in the front of it. It's got a +4 close assault factor, which means if any bikes try and take it on, they're going to take a bit of punishment themselves. And they've got the Blaster Cannon, which is 50 range, 1 dice 5 or 6, but a -2 to save modifier, which is good. Again, the Orcs don't have brilliant firepower overall. I should mention, by the way, I've not got any Brain Crushers, which is really unusual for me. I'd also like the Brain Crushers a lot, that -3 to save modifier. I can't really tell you why I haven't done it on this occasion, but I did realise that you were going to take them, so I thought, well, I'll do other things. So, yeah, the Goths have got 2 lots of Battle Wagons and 2 Skullhammers as well, so extra fire support. I've got another War Boss here, and the last thing I've taken, my 4,000 points, are the Renegade Mech Boys. I quite like the Renegade Mech Boys. Well, they're a variable quality, put it that way. The Dragster, I'll just start with that. It doesn't have any weapons, but it's got a deflector shield, and it's a big kind of airburst template, which is
12 centimeters.
12 centimeter, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I knew it's the big one. And basically creates this field around itself, and anybody else that's inside it, if an enemy shoots at them, it might deflect to things. I'm not going to go into the kind of nuts and bolts rules about this, but basically sometimes the shot deflects and it goes off in a random direction. So depending on where it goes, sometimes it will maybe end up hitting another vehicle. But sometimes it's repelled back and it actually can harm the issuing units itself. Not so likely unless they're pretty close by, but anyway, it's quite handy because it does protect them. I've also taken, you'll see this in the photographs somebody watching on YouTube, I've taken the Bubble Chucker Speedster. I'm not mad on that, to be honest. It's probably the least favourite of all the units. It's pretty hard to get it to work effectively. It is quite a good thing if you can get it to work, to get it on a Titan weapon. So, because if you can get it on one of them, if it was me, it was the Titan, and I had one of those things, the bubbles attached to the weapon, I wouldn't fire it because it's a chance it'll rebound back in yourself, and it's too big a risk to take. So it's maybe worth. I've got one in because I feel it's worth the gamble. I've also taken Destructor Rockets Speedsters, and they're basically a kind of barrage unit. And they've got variable number of barrage points that you roll, so it's artillery dice. Again, it's the same thing as I was describing earlier on, that the Cannon of Corn had, where you just roll the dice and it tells you how many barrage points and it can misfire. And it'll be a save at -2. I also agree with you, I do like the lifted dropper speedsters, but you'll notice that there's none in my Renegade Mech Boys. I think, being honest, I would probably get rid of the Bubble Chucker, probably get rid of the Destructor Rockets to take 2 of them. But the reason I didn't was because the colour scheme I've got for my Super Lifted Droppers is for the Death Skulls, and I didn't feel it was thematic.
Fair enough.
Even though there's dragsters in here that aren't thematic either.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do think the lifter dropper speedster is really effective. That 4+ -4, and it kind of throws the tank through the air and can possibly take out something if it's a lighter unit than it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun. So they are good, and
yeah, they're incredibly frustrating to play against. I'll say that. I hadn't encountered them at all until playing against you with them, and that the whole dragster with the deflector shield thing, and it's just an absolute nightmare. I don't know whether it's better just to avoid them, but yeah, it's something I'm still trying to build up towards. I've collected just about enough dragsters now to put one of the cards together, but I'm missing a few bits and bobs. So when it comes, I don't think I'll have the luxury of picking and choosing what units go into. It'll just be
what you've got.
whatever I can get my grubby mitts on. Yeah.
Well, my favourite of all the Metboy vehicles, and I've got quite a few of them, sorry to say, well, you might be sorry to see, is the custom cannon speedster, which is, again, uses the same thing of the artillery dice, as it's called. So if you don't get a misfire, it's going to give you between 2 and 10. Instead of barrage points, these are attack dice. So, if I get really lucky, I'm going to be rolling 40 attack dice from 4 units. That is insane. Very unlikely to happen, obviously. And the misfire, it's the same deal again, -2 to your save modifier. But it's not an auto kill. And the other thing I should mention about the Metboy vehicles is they all have some kind of technology or fields on them. So it means that they've got a variable armor save. So every single shot that hits, and this is, I think it's slightly annoying, to be honest. I wish it was just, you rolled it at the start of the game. But basically every time a shot hits you, you roll a dice to see what your armor save is. And it ranges between, from memory, 1 and 3 is a basic save. And then obviously that can be modified by whatever's hitting you. So, they're pretty durable. They can stand up to a bit of fire. And that's even without taking into consideration the dragsters, which are given that deflector field. So I think if you get quite a few custom cannon speedsters, they can be pretty effective and pretty worrying to see forming up against you, particularly when you know that when you're firing at them, there's a good chance this deflector field thing's going to just knock it away. So yeah, I'm a fan of Renegade Metboys. I think, to me, at this size of force, I probably should be bringing at least a slasher gargant. But to me, they're actually more effective than a slasher gargant, which, even though the slasher's got that gutbuster cannon, it's really limited to 2 weapons, isn't it? Beyond that.
Yeah, it's just got the two arm weapons.
Yeah. So to me, the Metboys it's a bit of a no-brainer that, you've got several vehicles there that can do something rather than get 3 attacks from the slasher.
Yeah, certainly, like I say, I've only ever played against them, and I think they're probably the most frustrating unit I've played against. So yeah, if that's any kind of endorsement of them, then yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So that's my 4,000, and we're on to the big 5-0. What have you got for 5,000?
Yeah, so again, this is more like a game of spot the difference now. So I've got the Cult of Speed, Badminton Clan, Goth Clan, Evil Sons, as before. Goth Clan still all getting transported in the Skullhammers with a battle wagon squad attached to them. The Evil Sons have got the Spleen Rippers and the Lift a Drop a Speedster, and I've reinstated the Bowel Burners with them as well. And in fact, I'm not sure where I put them, if I put them with a Cult of Speed or with the Evil Sons. I need to check that. But the Badminton Clan, they've got the Weird Boy Battle Tower and the Brain Crushers again. This time I've added, controversially, the Mech Boy Pulsar Rockets, just again, a pure nostalgia hit. So I'll take you down memory lane, but as a poor child growing up, I didn't have the Orc and Squat Warlord supplement. So I was fielding my Orc army based on what was in the core 2nd edition rulebook and a couple of White Dwarf articles, and whatever my brother brought back from the Games Workshop store. And one of the things we did have was Pulsar Rockets, and I remember them being amazing, but I think we either misplayed them or just was incredibly lucky. Or I think one of the things was we probably played on odd sized tables, probably kind of dining room tables, maybe like 3x4s or whatever. So they're a bit unwieldy, I guess, when it comes to like guessing the range for firing them, that kind of thing. They're a real gamble unit, but again, with most Orc things, you kind of gamble with them, and if it pays off, it pays off. You do get the 2 custom repair cards with them still, so that's quite good. So I suppose they've got that little bit of a incentive to take them, but they are quite expensive. At 250 points, there's probably and definitely better things you could take, without a doubt. You could take an Orc Warboss, for example, or if you had the special card slots for it. But yeah, I've taken them just for the nostalgia factor, and I just like the models, I like the idea of them, so I've taken them. I've still got the Mech Boy. Oh, sorry, I've swapped out the Slasher for a Mech Boy Gargant again, going back the way if you look at it that way. And I've also taken a Great Gargant this time again, just because it's one of these for 5,000 points. You want a Great Gargant in there, I guess, just for the orkiness of it. And again, it gives you access to a few more weapons. Effectively, you can take what you'd normally take with the Slasher, with the Gutbuster and that, but you'd also take. I would also take like the Gatling Cannon. Then you've got access to things like Scorcher Heads and the Mork Head and things like that. So there's a lot more options for it. Other than that, I've still got the Warboss in there, and I've got the Freebooters. So, and then filling up the rest of the support slots of Mad Boys. So yeah, it's getting quite a force at 5,000 points with the Orcs. You definitely get a lot of bang for your buck at that points value. I guess the only kind of caveat I would say is, like, again, I've been trying to take these as unique units as possible. I think when it gets to 5,000 points, I'd probably start mobbing up a few of these choices. So I'd maybe have a sacrifice a few things and get some extra Spleen Rippers in there and extra Brain Crushers. But yeah, that's another list for another day, I think. Nice. And that's my 5,000 points.
Okay, for my 5,000, and contrary to what I just said, I did put Brain Crushers in. So I'm glad about that, because I do love the Brain Crushers, and they do tend to turn up quite a lot in my army lists. Again, that -3 to save modifier, it's great for dealing with Land Raiders and super heavy tanks as well. The only kind of drawback with them is that they're a little brittle. I think they've got a 3+ save. They've got 100 range though, which is really important. So the one thing that's slightly problematic about them is that that's the kind of unit I would like to have camping in the back line. So the reason that my Brain Crushers are painted in blue and white is because I usually attach them to the Death Skulls clan, so who I'll mention in the end here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I quite like the Death Skulls, using them. I pretty much just treat the clan itself as muck. And I like to have them having these kind of long range weapons, and I would probably, if I had the Death Skulls, I might even have the shock attack guns, because people have been singing their praises to me and saying that I've been overlooking them. They're another kind of highly variable unit, but they can cause mayhem if you're lucky with them. I've got the Badmins with the 2 Goblet Grinders, the Badmin Weird Boy Tower, Battle Wagons, and the Brain Crushers have been added to them. The Cult of Speed has been cut right back this time, and I've only taken some extra war bikes, which isn't great for the breakpoint, but the reason, we'll get to that in a second. The Goths is exactly the same as the last time. 2 Skullhammers, 2 Battle Wagon Squadrons. Again, you need that many to transport this lot, that's the problem with them. And this time, for sheer variety alone, I've decided to take the Lungbuster instead of the Gut Ripper. Again, it's a bit of a coin toss between the two of them. All it really changes is the Lungbuster's not so good at close combat. It's only a +1 as opposed to the Gut Ripper's +4. But the reason you're losing that is because the weapon is the same, except that the Lungbuster has 75 range instead of 50 range, which
that's an epic thing.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah. So this is the weirdest point about this whole thing, that the Lungbuster and the Gut Ripper have the exact same stats in 2nd edition, exact same point cost, except for the Gut Ripper's got a +4 calf and the Lungbuster's got +1. So that's been
that's interesting.
errated, I guess, in the epic.
There's no reason otherwise you would take the Lungbusters.
So it's weird. There's absolutely no reason to take Lungbusters. It was a real shame, because I had Lungbusters as a kid again. Go back to the sad tales of my youth, but I had Lungbusters, didn't have Gut Rippers. But yeah, in 2nd edition, it's Gut Rippers all the way. No reason to take Lungbusters.
Sounds like there was maybe a typo though, because otherwise...
Yeah, something that's, again, it's maybe worth putting out there to the community. I don't know if it was ever errated or if it was ever FAQ'd or anything, but it's a weird one, definitely an odd thing to have, because they could have maybe made the Gut Rippers a bit more expensive or done something, but yeah, as it stands, it's just the calf that's different for the same price.
That's interesting. Oh well, you learn something new every day.
There you go.
I've just been playing the Epic for so long that I've got this in my head.
Exactly.
But yeah, -2 to save modifiers, that's pretty good as well. But the fact that the Epic's got it at 75 does make them more flexible from that point of view, that I always feel makes a big difference.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
Extra 25. Again, I've got the Renegade Mech Boys, same setup there. And basically, that's it, except I finally got a Slasher Gargant in, and I've taken a Great Gargant. I just feel at 5,000 points, you've got to have at least one in, but I felt I wanted to make up for the fact that I haven't had them feature until now, that I wanted both in. And really, they're great units. The other thing you mentioned about them, well, there's a one big drawback, which is the speed of them, which is a bit of a problem, because I tend to find I've got to have to charge them in turn 1, and it means they can't fire, and then it's really turn 2 that they get into the fight. But the thing that's amazing about the Gargants is the amount of punishment that they can take. Compared to about anything else in the game, I think the only things that could be above it would be obviously Mega Gargants and like the Imperator time. But I mean, you can take loads of hits, you can have fires blazing on the thing, and it can still shamble on for ages. So that's one of the reasons I really like the Gargants, because they can take such punishment. But yeah, I do find the kind of slow movement a bit more of an issue. Particularly, certainly at the lower costs, I feel that you've got to go with war bosses, because if you stick a Great Gargant in at a 3,000 or less, definitely, then I don't think you're going to get much effectiveness out of it, because it can be easily outflanked by some units. But yeah, the firepower's on it's great, and I'm not going to go through all the weapons options, but yeah, there's a number of different options, and I think you covered actually quite a few of them when you were talking about it anyway. I also gave you with that Gatling Cannon. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I usually arm it up with the things that are actually on my given model. I've got, I don't know why, but I've got a bit of a thing about that it's a bit of an OCD thing, that I feel that it's got to reflect what's actually on the model. So
yeah, I always played that way as well, to be fair. Yeah.
They are a wee bit on the pricey side as well, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other kind of downside with them. So I do think you are paying for that kind of level of punishment that they can take. Yeah, they've got to be in there for a 5,000. It's as simple as that.
Definitely.
2 of them in there, and that should cause some mayhem. And that's it. So that's us covered our main army list. So I think we should really talk about the other clans, because they're not. They deserve a little bit of chat here.
Yep.
So the first one, in fact, you used the Evil Sons. What I was wanting to add about the Evil Sons from earlier on was that they're all mechanised. And the thing that's really important about that is, you'll have seen in my list there, all right across the board, where I have had to put transports in as support cards. And the fact that it's already covered in the card is such a big bonus, because then you can really load out your support cards with stuff that you really want or might not necessarily use. So I think it's good from that point of view, because it means that you're not having to tie points up, right, I need a transport,
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is essential for all these other clans that you get them into the transports. Even if it's just battle wagons, it doesn't really matter. I think you've got to have them in there, unless you're going to set them up, as I say, to defend deep.
Yep.
Then I think you really have to have those transports. So that's the one thing that I think is great about the Evil Sons, that it allows you to take a lot of vehicles and things that you probably wouldn't be able to do with the other clans, because you're having to devote transports to get them up the battlefield. The Death Skulls, again, as I say, they're another one that I really like, just because they're basically a bunch of thieves, and they can take any support card that they like from any clan. And I think that's a good thing. That means that you can totally change how you play them and get things in there. If there's a particular thing from a certain clan and you don't really want to take that clan, I think they're great, because you can do that, and it gives you that versatility. And that then leaves the snake bites. I quite like it. I do like the snake bites, but I find them too pricey to justify. That's my big problem.
Yeah.
And it's really because, this. I made my own versions of because I couldn't. I just found them too expensive to justify paying the money for. Was the Orchosaurus or giant, or was it Great Squiggoth or something? It's called
Mega Squiggoth.
Mega Squiggoth. They all come under that umbrella. They've got different names, but yeah, I don't think that was actually in second edition in the first instance.
No.
And I really like having them on the board, but they're 250 points in the epic. They're too expensive really to kind of justify. Very powerful in terms of their calf.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a weapon that fires a barrage, which is all right. Other than that, they've got a few kind of close range weapons, but they're not. To me, they're not 250 points worth, or maybe 200.
No. I think that's the thing. I don't think there's anything, even with a lot of the additions in Net Epic to the clan-specific stuff, there's not much there to really, there's not a standout unit that would make you want to take any of those clans that we've not taken so far.
Yeah.
The base options you get with in second edition for the snake bites, you've got the boar boys, which is quite good, cavalry unit. You've got squig catapults, which are fairly, I don't know the stats on them, just doesn't really sing to me. And then you've got the Squiggoths again, which are okay-ish sounding, but again, not very powerful. There's nothing really to justify taking them, as far as I can tell.
Another thing that I find quite frustrating when I used to play the snake bites was that the board boys can't really get to work because they're held back by the rest of the mob. So it's a bit,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't understand that because they don't have. Well, I think that's maybe why the Mega Squiggoth came about, because it basically allows you a way to transport a lot of troops. But
Yeah, I mean, it'd been interesting if they maybe made the boar boys knobs or something like that, or done something to give them a little bit of edge. But yeah, as it stands, they're a bit of a damp squib.
oh, damn squig.
Teed you up for that one. I was waiting for it.
So yeah, I want to like them more, and I like the idea of them. That's the thing that kind of annoys me. That the stuff I don't find that performs as well enough. Because I was tempted to put them in, and I was tempted to put the Death Skulls in. But when it came down to the 5,000 points, if I'm being completely honest, I wouldn't choose them over those three core clans that we talked about, the Goths, the Badmins and the Cult of Speed. I just couldn't justify it. But I have taken them on occasion, and as I say, I do tend to use them just for defending deep because I don't give them vehicles to transport. And the last one, which is an interesting idea but to me doesn't appeal at all, is the Blood Axes. And what's kind of unique about them is that basically they're obsessed by human technology, so they have rhinos and land raiders. But there's nothing really special about that. I mean, to me, if I want to use land raiders and rhinos, then I'll have a game with the Marines. I don't see the point of it. I just that's the thing about it. So I'm sorry being down in the in the Blood Axes, but I've never had any occasion. And you know what? When I was painting them, I was doing it just to have them. I knew for a fact I was never going to use them.
See, I like the idea of them, and I like the kind of modelling opportunities as well. Kind of getting those kind of custom looted vehicles and stuff like that. But again, it's just you wouldn't take them in 9 out of 10 times. So.
Another thing is as well, they've got I think there's a rule about them if they were to lose the knobs, that other clans won't step in because they basically don't trust them.
Yeah, and vice versa. They can't command other clans.
Yeah, that's I think you're right. I think that's the rule.
Yeah.
So it's another limitation. So you don't really need it, but there's not really that many reasons to take them. But
no.
It's probably because I'm not into the modelling side so much. I think that might be part of my problem. I mean, I've literally just put their basic rhinos and land raiders, and I've just put a kind of green colour on them, but it just doesn't do it for me. But yeah, so is there any other units you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many, but a lot of them are just meh. I think you alluded a little bit earlier about the shock attack guns being maybe overlooked. I think you're right. I think they can be really effective. The big one for me, or the big in terms of size and iconicness, again, is the Stompas. Like, I would love to use the Stompas more, and I think the opportunity to use them, you get them with the Warlord card as well, which is an even more impressive war boss. You get them along with it, so I would be tempted to take them along with that card as an option, but they just move too slowly. They've got 50 centimeter range. They're never going to get in close combat with anything to use that 8 close assault factor, and they're not, they're pretty tough, but you'd be better off with more skull hammers and more Goblet Grinders, something like that.
Yeah,
they just don't have the presence they deserve given how big they are and how stompy they are. I think even something as simple as maybe having them 15 centimeter move would give you the option of them at least keeping up, but just as it stands, they're just kind of ineffective. And such a shame because I love them.
Yeah, I'm the same. Actually, one of the things I was going to mention at the end is that you and I are going to be playing a game of this, which hopefully might appear on YouTube at some point. And I was saying to you before we came on air that I've been doing a bit of tinkering, and the Stompers have been in and out. And currently they're out.
Fair enough.
Which is I could see reasons for having them. Again, it's that thing, I just wanted to have them. I wanted to use them because I've got so many of them anyway. It was one of those things that came when you got the box sets, they gave you quite a lot of them. So yeah, I just wish they were a bit more effective.
Yeah, I think there's reasons for taking it, but just need to be a bit better, I think.
One of the other units I quite like, and I don't remember if it was in second edition or not, are the Copters.
Yeah, they weren't. No, they weren't in second edition.
They weren't. It's an epic edition as well. Quite like them because they're fast and they're independent, which means they can break off and cause a bit of mayhem. They are quite expensive.
Yeah, there's things like in second edition the Orcs didn't have any flyers. There's a kind of the article about flyers that mentions that Orcs just don't fly because at this stage in the kind of 40k lore and stuff like that, they didn't fly either. But but eventually they did get flyers in 3rd edition, and they've had them ever since. I think they're quite a popular unit in 40k and stuff like that nowadays. You've got the fighter bombers, and you've got the whole Aeronautical Imperial Alice. I said that wrong, but you know what I mean. You've got that whole game with them in it, and so they've kind of became quite an oddly iconic orc unit now, which they didn't used to be. But I suppose it's quite good to give them the option of having them. But yeah, there's quite a few things in the Epic that have been added. I think the Orcs have probably got a good outing out of it, or a good number of new units, which again does make some of the clans a little bit more tempting to take for their kind of specialised units in base 2nd edition. A lot of the other stuff that we've not covered, it all kind of follows that same theme of being something like kind of various buggies, like things like the Gob Smashes and War Tracks and all that kind of stuff. They all kind of like that bolter shot thing, which is probably most hated stat line in Epic, is Tactical Marine. I would never pay for it. It would need to be under some weird condition that we were either playing a campaign game where we had a set amount of units, or some kind of random list generator that we were using, because I just can't consciously take them. Which is a shame.
No, I agree with you. Same with the things like the tractor cannon and things like that. And because I had loads of them, and I always wanted to be, semi-effective, but I never really found it well. Yeah, there's quite a number of units like that. I agree with you that just aren't quite there. But yeah, I think the flyers are quite interesting in Epic as well. I think they are a good thing to have in there. And but yeah, it's one of those things you should always talk about with your opponent if you're going to use them, so that they're aware, and because it's a bit unfair if you bring flyers to the board without the other person expecting. Yeah, so the next episode will be the squats, and this is a point where you and I are going our separate ways effectively. You'll still hopefully come on and chip in, but it'll be my choice is the squats, because we feel that the squats are fairly limited in what they've got, and we are going to end up, even though we did, it was a bit of a surprise to me that we had lists that were so similar, but then, like I said, Goth's Cult of Speed Badmins, is it really a surprise? Probably not. So yeah, squats will be up next, so hopefully you'll join us for that. In the meantime, as I say, hopefully we're going to get a live game, so it'll be a different format from my usual battle reports. Well, not live, it'll not be broadcast live, but live footage or recorded footage at the time.
Yes.
Which is unusual, because I usually just photograph everything and then make it look as if it's a video a wee bit. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully that'll work, and it'll be decent enough that I can actually feel it's worth broadcasting. So hopefully watch out for that. And I will be continuing for Epic Armageddon fans. Beyond the Green River will be continuing on a monthly basis, and the next episode of that's in the canon. It should already be in fact, it will be broadcast by the time you hear this, and so I hope you're enjoying that. And yeah, I think that wraps up all of the Epic plans for the future. So I'm looking forward to getting a game with you, Craig.
Yeah, me too. It's been a while.
Yeah, obviously the pandemic happened and stopped us, so I'm really excited about that. Win or lose, I don't actually care. I'm just excited to play Epic again.
You say that, but you've also been telling me you've been, having sleepless nights about this list you're building and taking things out and putting things in. I'm slightly worried. I set mine in stone after about 5 minutes and then walked away, so I'm a bit worried now.
Well, it's the Stompers. It's just the Stompers.
Yeah,
the ones sure. Because I wanted them, and then I just thought, no, they're not good enough. They're just not good enough. I can do something better with them.
Oddly, I mean, I'm playing Chaos in this game. I think they could work quite well against Chaos. They're one of the ones that are kind of, I guess they're on a par. They're a bit chaosy, slow moving, 50 centimeter range, but hard hitting. So
that was the reason I was thinking about it. It's because I did feel both sides are going to be relatively slow moving. And I thought, yeah, maybe they will get into the fight, but nah.
He's going to spam Renegade Met Boy units instead.
That's it. Just as many custom shooters as I can possibly find. So, anyway. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed chatting about it. The Orcs, a big favourite force of mine. I just love the idea of them. And the Goths and Badmins in particular, I've always had well, not always, because it was the Orcs were another force that came very late for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was the same thing. I had the plastic kits, and I really only had battle wagons, and I wasn't really into proxying particularly, so it wasn't the greatest. So I never really used them that often. It was only when I think the kind of late 2000s when I started getting on eBay and getting all these vehicles and toys that I always wished I had the money for when I was a teenager, that I actually finally got a decent force, and then It took me a wee while as well to get used to playing them and to use them effectively, and to actually realise that those war bosses are protecting the protecting the knobs is definitely key to success with them. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun playing with them, and since I got it up to a standard that I wanted it to be. I really enjoy playing the Orcs now. Yeah, I think I probably play them in squats a bit more than probably most people do, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a big fan of the Eldar in particular, but I think the Orcs, just because it was new, because I played the Eldar so much back in the day and I had enough of the units that it wasn't really a problem not having all the extra. Like the Eldar, like, was pretty well covered from the kind of plastic box set you used to get. So they were always my kind of go-to force. Marines I don't find that exciting because they're all just, there's not that much variety. So the Orcs is quite exciting to me because it always kind of presents me with a headache with the army construction, trying to get all the things in that you want to have and you never can, is the bottom line. Anyway, I'm just blethering now. So thanks for joining me, Craig, as always, and enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep on living the life of die.